Hi.
Hi.
My name is Bobby Lockhart. I'm here to just talk about my latest project, which is this book of game design exercises. It doesn't sound that revolutionary to make a book of worksheets for game design, but that's essentially what I've done. And with my co-author, Eric Lang. So the two of us made this, but I actually started making notes for this book in 2019. And then got serious about it because I got a Remarkable device, which is a really stupid reason to start something like that. But I had it by my bed, and I kept thinking of activity ideas. And my impetus behind this was that I actually wanted this book. I wanted to practice game design skills. And the way I came to be a game designer is I was a programmer, and and then I read this book, The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson, which is a science fiction book that it depicts a thing that's shaped like a book, but is actually kind of a video game. It's like in the far future, every page is interactive, whatever, and on the outside cover, it has sensors and stuff, so it's actually surveilling you when you're not reading/playing it to determine what to teach you. It's called the Young Ladies Illustrated Primer, and it basically raises the main character. And I was so inspired by that book, I was like, well, is anyone working on something like this? And basically it just came down to educational games. So I am an educational games designer. That's my specialty, although I've made some non-educational kids games. But I'm very proud of the fact that I have never made a game with a gun in it. So I got a job at a game studio. I was already out of school, so I was like, I'm not going back to school. I'm just going to learn on the job, and rather than learn about education first, I'll learn about games first, and I'll learn about education next. So I went, I got a job at a Facebook game studio, and and I was back-end programmer, and then I was junior game designer, and then through people leaving and me being okay, my job, I guess, I became a lead game designer at this studio, and I was in way over my head. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I embarked on this project of just reading every game design book that I could find. And now my game design book collection is way better than the Chicago Public Libraries. But this was one of my favorites. It's a book of exercises that you can do, but it's really made for the classroom. So it's assumes you have dice and paper and all kinds of materials. Plus, it assumes you're in a room full of 30 to whatever other people that you can team up with and play test against and all of that. And I was like, I don't have any of that. I just want to, and honestly, I don't have any time except when I'm on the bus. So what can I do for that type of person? And that's the constraints that we started with. So the best way to learn game design is to design a lot of games, but there are little micro pieces of game design that you can practice in isolation. So like balancing, level design, narrative, little fragments of game design that you can get better at even though you're not making a whole game on the bus or whatever. And that's what these little exercises are. Here's a few examples. This is an exercise that I actually kind of stole from Eric Zimmerman when he did it live. And then he he put out a book called The Rules We Break that also has a very similar exercise. But that book came out like a month ago. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a very common thing I think people do is like take a game, remix it by changing one rule, see how that plays out. Maybe once you sort of understand the consequences of those, change a couple more rules to support that, and try and keep with the spirit of the original game. You're not trying to do the Ship of Theseus with the tic-tac-toe, but yeah, that's the exercise. And here's a level design exercise which really gets elaborate. It starts with the most basic form of maze. This is kind of the middle, where we introduce keys and doors, which really makes mazes way more interesting, because dead ends can be rewarding. And then we introduce like alternative geometries like toroidal mazes, and mazes on a cube, which you can like cut out of the book and fold together. So I brought an exercise. Actually, I brought a bunch of exercises to do, and I thought I'd pass out the first one now. I promise this will be fun. All the exercises themselves are kind of game-like too. Another thing that happened is a few years ago, I was asked to contribute to another book of just prose about educational game design, which I do know a lot about, but I absolutely panicked and had a meltdown because it turns out I can no longer design anything that isn't interactive. I just have lost that skill entirely. So, yeah, can we pass out these? It's just one page each. All right. Coming soon is the fun part, which normally, if you're a solo practitioner using this workbook, you wouldn't have this privilege, but today, you can compare with friends.
I mean, you could show it to someone on the bus.
That's true. Like, can you find all these words?
And tell me how fun it was.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and this is exactly what I was going for.
Okay.
That, like, the chances are that you will never need to design a word search in your lives. Definitely not professionally. Like, the number of people who do that is, I don't know, maybe there's one guy. Most of the word searches are just made procedurally. But you can see how you're flexing the muscles that are involved in like puzzle design and just level layout. So I'm gonna move on, but hold on. Those sheets are yours. The pencils are yours. So just you can keep working if you want. Another thing that I wanted to emphasize about this book is that game design is so many things. No two games are alike, and that's why I think some of the things, even in the book, there's a chapter on making a GDD, and it's just this like very vague, like we have it kind of as a form, but there's like a disclaimer of like this should not be a form. Like GDDs never look the same, and if they do, then maybe you just keep making the same game over and over again. Maybe like all the Call of Duties probably follow the same format, but.
Can you just clarify the acronym for anyone who's not familiar with GDD?
Oh yes, game design document is basically to a game what a script is to a movie, or a blueprint is to a building. It's like the document that lays out how the thing is constructed, and especially like the player experience. So yeah, what do those look like? It's never the same twice. Like if you're making a visual novel, your GDD is going to look very different from a puzzle game, from a shooter, from whatever. Like and all of those things are just sort of lumped together in game design. And so lately I've been doing like a bunch of mentoring because I've had great mentors and want to try and give back. And a lot of what we end up talking about is like, which type of game designer should I be? There's a lot of options, and some of the consideration is like, what's the market like? Like who's getting hired? And some of it is like, what do you enjoy building? And what you enjoy building and what you enjoy playing are often very, very different. Like I am an educational games designer. I make educational games for kids, and I play some educational games for kids, because I have a professional interest in it. But that's not what I play for fun, obviously. And the same can be true for across any genres. So here's all the types of exercises, and these are mostly like format. It doesn't even cover what the subject matter is necessarily, but we have reflection, which is just like write to a prompt, and that I think is just coming from learning games. We know that any learning experience is solidified when you introspect about it. So we just needed to create those breaks, but most of the exercises are way more engaged, hands-on, more fun, more game-like in themselves. Here's another smattering of some exercises. You design a micro RPG, you're wireframing an app, and then this one is about complexity theory. So there's a bunch of, cross-training is a set of exercises that are skills from outside game design that are nonetheless useful. So there's one about storyboarding. There's one that's just like, here's a probability worksheet, just to refresh your mind about probability, because it's so important to game design, especially certain types of numerical games. But I have another exercise for you, and this one is way less familiar type of thing. It is that emergence one. It's the complexity theory. So another thing that I noticed in my survey of games books is that they're often very heavy on explanation and light on doing. There's some suggestions of activities at the end of a chapter. But I wanted to kind of reverse the ratio of like, let's explain the things that you need to know about game design, but spend more time playing with them than we do reading about them. So I'm willing to bet most of you haven't spent a lot of time thinking about complexity theory. But now you get to fool around with it, and hopefully that makes it more fun for you. I'm happy to see people are already doing it.
Yeah, well, I'm
comparing with friends.
Last one. So.
Okay. I think I'll cut in and just say, great job, everyone, who spent time on this. So what is it about? I think at a basic level, you just want to know, okay, simple rules, they can lead to simple behavior. They can also lead to complex behavior. They can also lead to random behavior. And the actual rules themselves, the particulars matter, not just how many rules you throw in. And the process of getting things from one class to another is a little bit like cooking, in that you're like, see, what if I add this in here? Okay, that's too much. Now we're in chaos mode, and we can pull it back, and then really get to sort of the level of complexity that we expect from something that has interesting, like, ecological type behavior, or a computer. So yeah, to hopefully spent a little time flexing those muscles of learning that cooking process and just playing around with what is revealed at the very end of that chapter to be essentially a Turing machine. And we've heard a lot about Turing machines. The mathematical abstraction is no fun to deal with, but you can transform it into this little hero guide going on a quest back and forth across a grid, and it's exact same thing, but now it's hopefully a little more interesting for you. Yeah. So the book had a bunch of constraints that I decided on really early. Like I said, we want it to be able to be completed on the bus with just a pencil. It's also just black and white, and that was in order to try and get it to be more publishable, essentially. But also I felt like we don't need color. We got texture. There's colorblind people anyway. Half the time I have to add a texture in the things that have color. But some other things that come to mind that are hard under these constraints: randomness and multiplayer. So for randomness, we decided to use this system where there's randomly pre-generated dice in the margins, and you have to think of a number. Like, before you don't look carefully at the dice, you think of a number between 1 and 10, you cross off that many dice, and then you just start from there, and you've got a random set of dice rolls.
Is that your cartoon version?
Yes, that's Eric's cartoon version of me. Eric did all the visual layout and illustration and stuff. Yeah, so here's a couple of examples that have some randomness built into them. Doing a roll and move with a four-sided die. And yeah, we also have at points these types of exercises where even to figure out what the exercise is requires randomness. For the randomized game idea chapters, you get this grid, and for every column, the row is picked randomly, and then that gives you 4 rules, and you have to kind of fill in the blanks with more rules and more detail to get a coherent game. So, like, what would a game be like that have like pieces that don't move at all but change state, and you add a piece to the board every turn, and each player starts with 4 pieces on a 7x7 grid. It's like, make a game with those 4 constraints essentially, and obviously that doesn't tell you how this game is played at all. That's up to you. And so these chapters are potentially even sort of redoable, replayable. I would have said, but it's a book. So, and then it's not just dice rolls that randomness. We've got cards. We've got all sorts of letter tiles. And then for multiplayer, there was a particularly challenging one where we wanted to allow the player to remix Battleship, and we figured, the book format is actually kind of interesting. So like if you do have a second player, what you can do is lift up one of the leaves of the page and have that block in between the two of you. But if you don't have a second player, then we need like an NPC. And so this is the NPC table is like, here's where their ships are encoded. So you can't immediately tell what the pattern is, but you choose a spot on the grid to fire at, and then you can tell whether you hit or not by consulting here. And then when it's their turn, they go through this list. So it's like A1, B2, C3. Oh, that was a hit. So their next guess will be C4, C5, C6. Like if those are hits, and if not, then they return to the return to the main list. So it's not the most efficient. They're probably not going to win, but it does simulate some kind of naive player playing a game of Battleship against you. Oh yeah, and if you get the mountain fold, there's a little illustration of how to play with an actual person. So I have one more exercise to do, and this one's I would say it's in between. It's less familiar than word find, but more intuitive than emergence. This is Sokoban. Have you ever played Sokoban? So it's another level design exercise, because I think those are the most fun to compare with friends. I brought this to the public library not too long ago. They have an event called Gamers Universe, which is like a team organized games, everything. They had tournaments of various digital games. They had tabletop prototypes. They had escape rooms, all sorts of things. And I brought these exercises mostly to test them because we hadn't gone to print yet. Thank you. And lots of families came. And this Sokoban exercise was a favorite of a pre-reader. We got a 5-year-old who could not read. Oh. Really enjoyed making Sokoban on this. I'm going to cut in again. Again, these things belong to you, so feel free to keep working. Yeah, the game, the book's available. You can find booksellers everywhere. I'm really happy we found a mass market publisher, so it doesn't cost $80 like a lot of game design books do. It's $25, and there's sales that run every so often. So I really appreciate you stopping in and trying these out. And thinking about how to represent the micro fragmentary skills of game design within a very static thing like a bunch of layers of dead tree. So thanks for coming. Questions if you have any, but also I know I've kept you longer than I was supposed to.
Was it fun working with some of the constraints that you set up for this?
It was fun, yeah. And I keep having ideas from my exercise. My brain is still locked into the gear of making these, so hopefully maybe there'll be a second edition, maybe there'll be some digital only ones that you can get on our website.
Does the Google version have PDFs at all?
Yeah, I know.
I think that's a good question. I think there is an ebook version.
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah.
You find that well, it's like personal favorite type stuff. Are there things that you can't replicate on personal paper that in the video game, or you find that most video game concepts can be broken down into Does it take a class?
There are definitely chapters where I kind of cheat, where I'm like, you have to kind of think about this in your mind and write what you think it'll be like. Very much like what is it called? Top 10 games you can play in your head by yourself. That's a really great book, by the way. I read that. But yeah, there's like real-time stuff that you just can't do. That's what so much is turn-based in this book, but I wanted to cover real-time stuff as well because video game design is happens as you're playing it. And yeah, there are some multiplayer things, like there's a chapter on hidden role games that again you have to kind of you have to kind of make your own cast of who's playing, and then so you get to split yourself into 8 friends and play this hidden role game. Yeah, so it does involve some sort of segmentation of yourself, which is another great skill to have, because often when you're playing a video game, you want to try and be 2 people at once. You want to be the player who's like doing their best and you know, having fun if possible, and then the observer who is figuring out like, why is this other person reacting this way to these criteria. So that's hopefully helpful in its own way, although it's not fully represented in the book. Like, it's not as formally concise as these other exercises. Yeah?
What was your iteration and testing process like for the things you put in the book?
Good question. Yeah, I made handwritten versions of a lot of these and asked my friends who are professors if they could try them out. And some of them were like, I cannot put handwritten BS like this in front of my students, like I'm a professional. But some of them were like, okay. And then I started working with Eric, and he made actual nice laid out versions of them, and I sent it out to even more educator friends, and we had a mailing list of like people who were interested in testing it. So they got to see it early, yeah, I did it. I went to this event, the Gamers Universe. So I play tested in person sometimes. I mostly got feedback through an educator who was like, my students like this and didn't like that, or like, here's some examples. They would send me pictures of what their students had made. And I really hope that eventually becomes a part of our website too, is like a showcase of this is the level I designed. Hey, you know, try this out.
Where'd you get the game machine?
Just a dropout store. Yeah.
Okay. I was curious. I mean, this book is I've got the QR code, but are there other like resources that you always kind of recommend in terms of game design, or sort of like diving into this world and learning more?
Not my book, still.
Yeah, I mean, one of the chapters in the book at the end is like a huge further reading section, and it's organized by like, if you liked this exercise and want to learn more, here's a whole book about that. You know, like,
Yeah.
There's a few chapters that don't have a book resource, but most of them do. Yeah. But yeah, I can give you my top faves. Anna Anthropy's book of vocabulary of game design. Rob Zubek's book, Elements of Game Design. The guy who made Magic wrote a game design book that is very good. I can't remember the name of it. But he's like the 3rd author of 4 or something. Joris Dormans also wrote a game design book that is quite good about systems design specifically. And that involves using a tool called machinations, which is like a flow diagram thing that's animated and is really great, especially for someone like me. The stereotype about game designers is that we all love spreadsheets, but I actually hate spreadsheets. I can't look at them for more than like an hour without just like falling asleep. So machinations can do everything a spreadsheet can do, but it's like an animated, fun-looking diagram thing. Yeah. Do you have?
No, nothing.
Yeah, okay.
Just listen.
Cool.
What was the process like sort of deciding what like game design skills you felt were important to represent in this book?
Some of it was like what's feasible. Yeah, it's a good question. Sometimes it would be like I'm in my work day, like I need to do this thing. Oh yeah, I should probably like have an exercise about this because other game designers do this. Sometimes it was like there's a whole class of chapters that's called remix. It's just all the ones where you change one rule and then you keep changing more rules and try and support that. And it was just like, oh, that's a fun game that we could remix. Oh, that's a good one that makes sense. And often they're pencil and paper games because, I'm not sure. Honestly, it was just like, here's everything that I try to do myself. But again, like game design is so many things. Like I don't do everything that game designers do, so there's probably huge gaps. Sorry. Yeah.
Were there any points when you were designing these challenges when you were like trying to encapsulate those moments of like randomness or real-time points that you can't really easily do in a book format? Do you ever feel like there were times when some sort of like mechanic that was a solution to that ever got like too like overly complicated and kind of like it became a little too hard to follow?
Are you talking about this guy?
I think that's not that bad.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is definitely as complex as it got. I think I knew limitations well enough to not try. Like, there's a chapter on discretizing space and time, and that's mostly so that you could, as a reader, get in the habit of like, what if this was turn-based? Like, even the thing that I want to design is like a fighting game. Can I discretize it for the sake of like working with it on paper? And I think the answer is yes. Like there's lots of good ways to turn a fighting game into a state diagram or into like a graph of some kind.
Was that something that you worked pretty closely with your educator friends to like gauge, especially since it seems like you didn't do a whole lot of like one-on-one play testing? Like did you have to like work with them a lot closer to like navigate that since you weren't directly working with play testers?
Honestly, no. I didn't spend a lot of time on that. I just hope, I guess. Hope it works. Thanks again. Appreciate it.